Hello guys and welcome to the Sicilian Paramour. Today we will be looking at a very beautiful game from the 19th century. This is a game between Hoffman and Petroff. So without further ado, let's get into it. After the moves e4, e5, knight f3, the move knight f6 actually signifies the Petroff defense, and the guy playing the black side is the man who invented and popularized this defense, Alexander Petroff. However, in this game we see the other more common move, knight c6. And after bishop c4, we have already gone into the Italian game territory, simply attacking the weakest pawn in the black camp, f7. After bishop c5, we have the classical, also known as a Gioco Piano, Italian game. And black just wants to follow it up with knight f6 and complete his development. c3 is the most common move and the move played in the game. It just basically prepares the advance d4. After knight f6, d4 is a very common move, the other move being d3. So after d4, e takes d4, the move c takes d4, we will enter the Mauler's attack, but we don't get that. We go e5, and I have actually played this position many times myself, and the equalizer that black has in this position is the move d5. And basically this is just known to equalize for black. Variations can go something like d5, bishop b5, knight e4, c takes, and there are many variations after that. The bishop can either give a check or the more popular bishop b6. And as you can see, highlighted by the arrows, there are so many moves that white can try out here. Bishop takes c6, knight c3, bishop e3, and castle, and even the move h3, just to prevent the bishop from coming down to g4, which is a main idea in many of these lines. However, we're not going anywhere near this. However, if you want to check out this variation, it is known as the Sveshnikov line in the Italian game. But no, after e5, we get the move knight e4. Now this is not necessarily a good move, and the move played in the game is probably known to be the most precise, which is bishop d5. It is just attacking the knight, which has, as far as I can see, it has no good retreat squares. So basically this variation is played for the sacrifice knight takes f2. And the queen and the rook are forked, so basically the white's choice is forced and you have to take. And Hoffman did take. And after d takes c3, which is the obvious move, gaining another pawn for it, you are giving the check to the king, and now the king has to move. The most popular move here would be, and the most logical, would be king f1, and after c takes b2, bishop takes, castle, and knight c3, it's anybody's game. White has an extra piece, but the white king is misplaced, and black has 3 pawns for it, while these pawns might actually turn out to be weaknesses. But it's an unclear position and the game is still on. However, in the game, Hoffman, after the move d takes c3, moved his king all the way to g3. Now I tried checking in some databases and I could not actually find a name for this variation. However, one database did suggest the name to be Ghulam Qasim variation. I'm not really sure who this player is, Ghulam Qasim, or what is the contribution that he has towards this line, and I was not able to find any of his games in my database. Maybe you guys can illuminate me on that. Alright, so after king g3, c takes b2, bishop takes b2, the position is as such. White has an extra piece, but the pawns are weak. The king is highly dubious here on g3. And at the same time, black has a better pawn structure. So knight e7 was played. Now this is a good move. It is not only attacking the bishop, and it's also wanting to come down on f5 and misplace the king again, because the king cannot go back to f2 after the check because the bishop guards it. So now there are the engine suggestion would be queen c2. Now it is attacking the bishop as well as protecting this check. and if the knight just simply takes, we take back the bishop, so there's not a big deal. And after bishop b6, knight c3, which is protecting the bishop now, it's anybody's game still. It's an unclear position, but hey, it's still, it can go either way. Another way after knight e7 would be the move bishop e4. Now this is actually an old analysis by John Nunn in his book called The King Hunt. So after bishop e7, d5 is the computer recommendation, and I'll tell you why. After e takes d6 and c takes d6, now rook e1 and castle. This is the the continuation that the computer suggests. The reason for this is that the pawn actually protects the bishop, because say after d5, if you don't play d5 and you just simply go for castle, white can actually throw in this check, sacrifice the bishop temporarily, because after takes, he's getting back the bishop. So basically the other line is just protecting the bishop. Alright, we don't go this road at all. Neither queen c2 or bishop e4 was played. The move played in the game was knight g5. Now knight g5 is a very provocative move. It is just giving the bishop up, and it is just it's a very cunning move. However, it requires black to play some pretty fine moves to refute this move, knight g5. So the game continued. Knight takes d5, which not only takes the bishop, it also attacks the knight. Now there's another variation here. Knight f5, this can be played, but after king f4, bishop e3 check, it's a good check. I'm really sorry, okay. So after check and this, you basically have two moves now. You can either go back with the bishop, this is the computer suggestion, or another variation given by John Nunn was c6. But after this, white has the sacrifice bishop f7, king takes, and f3, getting back the piece with a very unclear position. White will have an extra piece, it will have a more centralized king, or you can say a more vulnerable king, whatever. And it's still anybody's game here. So knight f5, although pretty good, is not conclusive. So knight takes d5 was played, and here is white's entire idea behind the move knight g5. It's knight takes f7, and to be very honest, it's a pretty how do you say, it's like paying the compliment back. It's like, what you did to me on move 7, I'm gonna do to you again on move 12. So once upon a time, black had a knight which took the pawn on f2, and now it is white's turn to do the same. However, this is even more demonic, shall I say, because it's attacking the queen, the rook, and the knight is also hanging. So what do? You have to protect the queen. Moves like queen e7 don't make sense, because after okay, I'll tell you. First of all, the most common move, king takes f7, doesn't make sense, because after queen takes, you're getting back the bishop again. So it's going to be a really good, healthy position for white after that. Now the move queen e7 might actually be good for black, because after, say, queen takes d5, rook f8, rook f1, rook takes, queen takes, queen takes, rook takes, and after king takes f7, knight c3. Of course, black has four connected pawns, and will be able to create a pass pawn here. There are an equal number of pieces on the board, and black is just 2 pawns up, and white even has weak pawns on e5 and a2. So of course, this position is winnable. However, black had something else in mind, So after knight takes f7, he had actually anticipated this move, and he had prepared the reply. Well, I can give you some time to guess it, So take your time and find out what move did black play. I'll give you a hint though, it is a really classy move. It's a kind of a move that you make on the board and you're like, I know this game. Alright. Okay, so I hope you paused the video if you wanted to check it out. I'm going to tell you the move. It was just castle. Just leaving your queen en prey, just like that, in the middle of the board. Now, what can you do after this? The most obvious move is knight takes d8. However, another move like queen takes d5 is actually not good enough, because after rook takes, say queen takes, queen g5 is already a mate in 4 after king h5 and d5. Now, okay, you can throw some stupid things in between, but you cannot avoid the inevitable. So why not just take the queen with knight takes d5? And what does black get for this queen loss? Now, highlighted by the arrows, it just tells you the whole story. Basically, the entire f file is covered by the rook, and the king is just stuck in this square. And all these black pieces are actually going to rain havoc down on him. So it is a pretty, straightforward, standard confine and mate idea. So after knight takes, bishop f2, and the game has already begun. Or shall I say, the mating process has already begun. Now, king h3 was chosen. King g4, believe it or not, you can check by your own computers. Is losing even quicker. It's like, I believe, mate in 4 or 5 or something like that. King h3 is more stubborn, but how stubborn can you be when your house is on fire? So after d6, the bishop gives a check. e6 was played. However, if you want to block it with g4, go ahead. After knight f4, you're just going to be mated. Yes, that's a mate. It's a pretty mate though. And so after g6, after e6, knight f4 check was played. The only legal move is king g4, and now knight takes e6. Still, the king is not allowed to get out of this box, and now the knight is just threatening to move and give a discovered check to the king. So in the game, knight takes e6 was played, and this did not last long. The most stubborn continuation, I believe, would be knight just g3, because it is protecting the two squares h4 and f4, so that it just limits a lot of black options. However, it is still going to be a mate. So after knight takes d8, king g5, sometimes you just cannot escape destiny. So after knight rook f5 check, king g4, rook f6, a discovered check again. You can go king h4. Now this classy move, rook f4 check, utilizing the pin on the pawn. The pawn cannot take because of the bishop. And after king g5, knight e6, which not only protects the rook, also gives a check. h5, g6, king h6, the only move. And now you can finish off the game with 2 moves, but who doesn't want a rook sack? Rook to h4 check. And now you can either take the rook and be mated with the bishop, or you can just, be extremely desperate, throw in your queen, and will be extremely classy and still not take your queen and give bishop e3 mate yet again. However, you can see that g3 did last a little longer. The move played in the game was just knight takes e6, but that did not last anyway. So after bishop takes e6, king g5, rook f5 check, king g4, h5 check. Even the pawn is coming in the attack. And after king h3, rook f3, and the game is over. It's mate. And look at all these white pieces, the queen, the bishop, the knight, the 2 rooks just standing there and just witnessing this assassination of their own king. And nothing can be done about this. So this was a brilliant king hunt, and it is one of my favorite games. And it was played in, I believe, Warsaw, the capital of Poland, in 1844. It wasn't a tournament game, it was a casual game between these 2 people, but what a game it was. Anyways, so if you like the game or my presentation, either way, give it a thumbs up, and I hope to see you next time. Up until then, bye-bye.